Welcome to the Reawakening Ancient Feminine Wisdom in Pregnancy, Birth, and Motherhood Summit. I'm your host, Nancy Lucina, and today we have with us Anne Margolis. Anne is a licensed certified nurse midwife, OBGYN nurse practitioner, certified yoga teacher, and clarity breathwork practitioner. She is a third-generation guide to mamas birthing babies in her family. Anne has helped thousands of families in her 20-plus years midwifery practice and has personally ushered the births of over 1,000 healthy babies into the world. Through her online childbirth course, Love Your Birth, her online and in-person midwifery for pregnancy and postpartum support, her birth professional mentoring, and her holistic gynecology offerings, she infuses wisdom, compassion, inspiration, and joy into the entire process of women's wellness, from mamahood to menopause. Today, Anne and I discuss why home birth is safer than you think, and so much more. Hello, everyone. We have with us today Anne Margolis from HomeSweetHomeBirth.com. Welcome, Anne. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So happy to soak up your wisdom today. You are a midwife with a lot of years of experience. So my first question for you is around home birth, because I know that's your area of expertise. For me, I find that a lot of clients that I work with are women who I come across with who are pregnant, really desire a home birth, and they might have this feeling like this is the birth that's right for me. And in this summit, we're talking about awakening that ancient feminine wisdom within. So this kind of intuitive place, right? That they somehow know that the home birth is right for them, but then that family members say, no, that's not a good idea, or the husband, more importantly, is just totally not on board with that. So I'm wondering what you can say to encourage those women to keep following that intuition, but also maybe what you could say to the partners. Like, can you talk a bit about how home birth is actually safe, and maybe kind of just like take away some of those myths that we're maybe fed with, you know?
Yes. So I don't know if you want me to share that. I actually wrote an entire blog on that topic because I get it all the time.
Okay.
And I always say, like, if a woman is intuitively, or she knows she needs to, she has a vision of how she wants to birth, and she can only really feel safe and instinctual and really just is only feeling comfortable in the home setting, right? She's going to birth really well. Right. I'm more concerned actually when the dad wants her to have a home birth and she's not feeling it. Right.
Okay. Right.
But I've in over 21 years of helping moms. I a lot of times have a mom that wants that, but dad's not on the same page, or the family is not on the same page, or the friends are not on the same page. So number one, I think a lot of it is fear and lack of education. So I always tell them, bring them to prenatal care. Well, especially dads, just come to prenatal care, get to know me, and ask your questions. And so many times the guys just want to be heard. They just have questions like, what do you do if, like, they're scared. There's a false sense of safety. That the hospital's the safest way to have a baby. And actually, there's huge amount of research. I'm going to give you the link to my blog because I wrote it
great.
Specifically on that topic. But there's tons of research on the safety of home birth. And not only that it is as safe, but oftentimes safer.
Yeah.
So it's HomeSweetHomeBirth.com /blog/family against home birth plan.
Okay.
And I really go into the statistics and, talking about the safety of home birth. So sometimes the dads just want to know, like, what are you going to do if, the baby's in distress? What are you going to do if something really goes wrong, you know. So number one, I really just calmly address and answer their questions. You know, we bring the birth center to you. Right. So it basically, you know, we move in with like, you know, I have a master's, you know, they see my licenses on the wall. They see pictures and collages of all the babies, you know, and sometimes I put them in touch with other dads in my practice. You know, I have a list of, a woman actually wanted to create this, like she wanted to network with other home birth families, and she, you know, she didn't know any. I said, well, I know a lot, right? I know. Right. So I had to ask permission, and I sent out an email to all the families in my practice who wants to network and, you know, maybe be a reference if somebody wants to, you know, connect. And I got 3 pages of people. And so it's amazing, you know, like couples have gotten together and sometimes they just need to hear how, you know, how it goes. Like, what do you do if there's a hemorrhage? What do you do if they, you know, so, you know, I say, you know, birth is normal. You know, we can birth like we breathe, right? If we have asthma, then we have, you know, an issue that has to be addressed. But if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to fix. Yeah. And the best way that birth works is when supported and in a way that it can just flow on its own. Yeah. So you know, we preserve the space of letting it happen when all is well. There's nothing to fix, right? And it works. Exactly. Okay. The problem in the hospital is, you know, and I go into like our country, like there's the movie, The Business of Being Born, that really next day on that. Yeah. What's going on in our country. It's like ranking near the bottom in terms of losing more babies and mothers during the process of giving birth, or having, you know, a high rates of maternal and newborn morbidity, which is, you know, illness or complications around birth. And the countries that are doing the best are really incorporating much more midwifery-led care and out-of-hospital birthing model of care, you know. Right. You know, so and I there's a lot of risk that comes with meddling, you know, and that can just be from putting on a hospital gown and becoming, you know, a patient versus this empowered woman, right? Right. Being attached to an IV, attached to a monitor, you know, suctioning babies, you know, inducing, or, you know, being on the clock and all the medication. So there's this cascade of interventions that go on in our country and in many localities, and that actually increases the risk of problems. So we're not doing that, you know. And so that being said, I carry with me in my bag, you know, I have IVs if I need to give. Right. I have all the same medications that are given. You know, I've never lost a mother. You know, so sometimes I just answer these questions, and that's, you know, and that's fine for them. And I give them things to read, and you know, a lot of times it's just validating. I get your concern, and just building that relationship. And I have never, you know, usually the dads come along, you know, because they really want to do, they want to honor what their love, you know, mom wants. Yeah. Now, I'm just going to tell you an example. I had one dad in all these years who, he says he wants to honor what she said, but he can't handle it. He absolutely can't handle it. He thinks that the hospital is the safest place, and he's just going to be a nervous wreck, and tension and fear and stress are the enemy of labor. And I was explaining, you know, him to that, and she was like not budging. You know, I'm not going into a hospital. Like, I'm having my baby at home. And, you know, they had a close enough relationship that he wanted to honor her choice, but he knew he'd be a mess. And he'd be too stressed, and he couldn't handle it. So he just would say like, honey, I can't be there. And she was going to be okay with that. Like, okay, my mom will be there, and I'll have a doula, right? And my best friend, right? And what happened was, at the birth, he was so there, and he never left. And it transformed him for life. And in fact, after that, like, he was telling all his friends, oh, you got to have a home birth.
Oh my God.
You know, and he became like the biggest fan. And, you know, his second, you know, their second baby, they came back, you know, so it's amazing, you know, like just the misconception and the myths that misunderstandings. And sometimes it's just getting respectful care where you're building a relationship, and, you know, so they come around.
Yeah.
Now that the partner I'm more concerned about. When I get into families, so there's been many different arrangements. I always tell mom, this is your birth, your body, your baby. This is you know, your business. And really build a fortress of positivity around you. If this is not a time to go debate with friends and family, like home birth is safe, quoting the studies, you know, in relationships where they're really close, I say, bring your parents, bring everybody, bring them all to prenatal care. And I will answer their questions just as I answered, you know, just as I explained. And sometimes families have come around. Sometimes they're really, there are families that are really a source of tension. And, you know, I coach women in, like, you know, I love you very much, but this is something I need to do. And you know, if we're not going to be talking about positive things that are going to make me feel calm and excited about what I'm doing, I'm going to need to hang up, or, you know, the room or something like that. Some people, rarely, occasionally, families just can't tell their in-laws or parents, like they're going to a midwife. And, you know, we have collaborative relationships with local hospitals. So they just, we're going to a midwife's, and, you know, and they have, you know, mention the hospital, you know, I say, don't lie, you know?
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, I have stories. I could write a book. I had one, mother that she told her daughter that if she's having a home birth, she's calling the police.
Oh my God.
That poor woman. I said to her, oh, let them call the police. You know, you're not doing a crime. We're not doing a crime.
Right.
You know, I handle the police. But I don't think that's, you know, that tension is just not good for you. You know? And the mother was calling every day. And she, you know, we worked with her in terms of how to, you know, and just calming herself. And she didn't, you know, her mother was calling every day, but she just went in, her body knew what to do. She went into labor and had a very quick birth in the middle of the night. Right. But the mother was so happy. She was at the three next births and telling everyone they should have a home birth. So,
oh my God.
So, you know, people come, like, it was her fear. She was just nervous.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I had another family where, okay, so she was a lawyer. Her husband was anesthesiologist, and the parents felt like you need to only go to a high risk obstetrician in an Ivy League institution to have your baby, right? Everything else is just unsafe, you know what? Yeah. And so it was another very, like, close relationship, and the parents actually told the daughter they are not, you know, they almost like they can't be involved. They're not gonna. They won't interfere. But there was tension. So when she was in labor, she was doing beautifully. She was rocking her labor. She was close. She was about, you know, in transition. And it was this beautiful scene of just, you know, her team and us and them, and, you know, and she was just gonna, you know, I was getting ready to catch a baby, and in walk the parents, just barge in. They it's that close of a relationship. I think they had a key to the house.
Wow.
Well, of course, her labor stopped.
Right. Oh my God.
There was some tension between the two of them, and I just basically said, she's doing really well. We're checking the baby's heart rate. Everything's normal with her. Everything's normal with the baby. We're 15 minutes from a hospital. I don't see any problem. And I took them aside. I just think, you know, there's a lot of stress here between the two of you, and I just don't think she's, you know, her labor stopped. And I think she'd do better if you're not here, and we will call you as soon as the baby is born. And she hugged me, the mother, and she was crying, left. they had a great birth. And then of course the parents were at the next two births. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. You brought up so many amazing things about how birth can like bring together communities in that way,
Yeah.
right? And heal things. And then also how it can create tension sometimes. And I absolutely love what you talked about, because I tell women the same thing about putting up your boundaries, like your energetic boundaries, because you're so sensitive and vulnerable in pregnancy. And during pregnancy, it's not the time to become the advocate for home birth. That is such an important point.
Fortress of
I did
positivity. I
that
just,
when I was pregnant.
debate, no debates. I
No,
have
exactly.
if they're interested in research, you could watch The Business of Being Born, or here's a
Yeah.
few books, but I have a list of books, that I recommend. But yeah.
Yeah. Because it's so draining.
I'm sensitive now. I really need to surround myself with, with positive stories or things that make me feel confident and excited and
Yeah.
calm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for me, we were talking a bit before the recording about the inner wise woman, right? And awakening that part of us. And I think that pregnancy is such a journey into getting to know her. And she sometimes forces us into uncomfortable truths, or like, uncomfortable boundary setting, saying to people that you love deeply, you know what, I can't hear your fears. I'm sorry. And that can be so difficult for a woman. So it's nice. I love hearing you say that with all of your years of experience. I hope that women are really taking that in right now.
Yeah, it's not about attention. Just say, I love you. I know you care about me. You can come to care with, you can come to the, even you can come to my visits, but I can't just be in a debate and an argument. This is just
Right.
something that I need to do. And I just hope you'll, respect my boundaries. And a lot of women are just, feel, that's been enough.
Yeah.
And if
Exactly.
it's not, I have stories.
Yeah. You have so many stories. Oh, I love it. You brought up inductions, which is something I'd love to talk to you about. This is something that I run across a lot, especially I'm a part of a few Facebook groups, natural birth Facebook groups. And I find that so many women are preparing for a natural birth. They get to 38 weeks and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, this person told me I need to induce, and my doctor, and they're, I feel like a helplessness kind of washes over a lot of them. And I'm like, oh, you got so far and now you just have a few weeks to go. And why are you throwing away this possibility of a natural birth just because you go over a time limit? So I'd love to get your professional opinion about when induction actually is necessary, because right now I know that the rates are just extreme. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. So it starts from the very beginning.
Mm.
First of all, when I always tell women, if you want a surgery, if you want a medical, birth with all the interventions, you hire an obstetrician, because that's their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Want a natural birth, you got to hire and be in a setting that's going to promote that. So for example, like in the beginning, if a woman is interviewing, not everybody has midwives in their locality, but like I'm in New York, so there's a lot of midwives, right? And the woman is talking to me about, like, her doctor's talking about induction. I'm like, who did you hire, for the birth, and also so I like to start from the beginning. If you want a natural birth, you need to hire a midwife or a doctor who is known for promoting natural birth. They're out there, they're out there. Now, like, so I had a woman who took my online, my Love Your Birth course. And so basically, the course takes women through my practice, like how I empower and educate women through my practice, from pregnancy, through birth and postpartum, to just, be empowered, in touch with their sensual, instinctual part of themselves, love their experience no matter how it unfolds. But a woman took my course. She was in Guatemala, stationed there because her husband had to work there. And she sent me this amazing letter and video of her birth. She said because she took my course, she felt like empowered. There were no midwives there, and the only doctors that she knew did cesareans.
Okay.
She spoke up, and not only did she get an obstetrician to attend a natural birth for her, and his only does cesareans.
Wow.
He attended her in her home.
Wow.
So it's like a woman. The empowerment begins with us. If we speak up, that's where change occurs, right? So when a woman is empowered with that, that knowledge, number one, she can hire a midwife or a doctor who is going to allow the natural process to unfold unless there's a problem, right? So that being said, I'm very big on how we get due dates, because due dates are really a guesstimate around a 5-week window when normal babies are birthed, right? So when modern medicine a lot of times just use the first date of the last period. So like I like to talk to women before they're pregnant because track your cycles, because if you have a 30 to 35 day cycle, or let's say you pretty much have a 35-day cycle, if they date your pregnancy by the first date of your last period, you're going to be already labeled as late. I mean, you ovulated a week past, like if you have a 28-day cycle, most people vary 27, 29, but let's just say 28-day cycle, you're going to ovulate around day 14. So that's when you conceived, right? But let's say you ovulate, let's say you have 35-day cycles. We need to date that pregnancy a week later. We need to give you an estimated due date by the date you ovulated, not by the date of your period.
Right.
Some women know, for example, like I know when I conceived because my husband was away on a trip, and I track my cycles, and the only time we had sex that time, that month is this date, or these dates. And that's 2 weeks after the first day of her last period. Well, that's when she got pregnant, right? So I would add 2 weeks to her dates. So like what I'm finding is when doctors are just using the first day of the last period, they're falsely diagnosing people. By the time, let's say they're 38 weeks, they're not 38 weeks, they're 35 weeks.
Right.
So I'm very careful about how I date a pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I had a woman, women are not textbooks. Like not everybody behaves in like clockwork. Like,
exactly.
There's so much variation in the normal. Like I had a woman who's had, she had 6 children. She was expecting her 7th baby. She had moved to the area and she wanted a home birth, and she said she always delivers her babies 44 weeks.
Okay.
And everything's fine.
Yeah.
So, and she had 28-day cycles. I said, well, that's your body. That's your body. She never had a baby that had a complication. It always had a lot of vernix and signs that the baby was actually early. So I just said, okay, we're adding 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really doing history and listening to the woman. But that being said, there are issues that, there are medical problems that can come up where it's safer to get the baby out. Preeclampsia is an example.
Yeah, right.
That's a nasty one. It's high blood pressure with other complications that are unique to the pregnancy, and the delivery. The delivery is the cure. So if the baby, so they try to wait as much as possible, as long as possible. But if baby is getting compromised, mom is compromised, or there's a concern that the condition is worsening, that is a need, the whole post dates question is such, that's a more common thing that people are dealing with. Like as soon as you're due, 38 weeks, we have to start natural thing, or we have to start, getting going. And if you're not having your baby by 41 weeks, we're inducing. Right. That's,
not really based on anything. Like, what do you have to say about, for me, I was just at a birth that was 42 plus 5 days. The placenta was perfect. The baby was not huge by any stretch. So like that's a common thing, right? The placenta is going to stop working, going to calcify. You're going to not have enough amniotic fluid. So yeah, what do you think about those?
Well, we live, like, because I am licensed, and I have to abide by, the general standards in the community. Like I'm known in my area, in my locality, for giving really responsible care. It's that fine balance we walk. We can't be reckless, but we have to still, it's not always just la la la.
Right.
And we do have to interact with hospitals. Sometimes we do need, like my transfer rate is 7%. So that means 93 is actually closer to 7%. That means that the majority, like 93% are giving birth at home. But I need to have a safe, supportive relationship with my collaborative physician and the hospitals that I work with. So I can't just bring in a woman who's 44 weeks by good dates and and complications and say, here, take her. She's
right.
So that would give that would be a problem, not just for me, but all the home birth moms and other midwives. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm really careful about giving a good date.
Mm-hmm.
The studies used to be, the care given in this country was that used to be more evidence-based, was that women after 42 weeks, there's a small chance that there can be problems related to being post-dates, whether, God forbid, stillbirths, or, that's the most severe, let's say, or a baby that's too big But, women are giving birth at home to 10 and 11 pound babies because they're up and they're squatting and they're lunging. Yeah. So the size is not as much of a concern for me, because babies mold, women's pelvises grow. Right. But yeah, if there's, so it used to be that after 42 weeks, we monitor. There's ways to monitor. How is the baby doing? They now have these like ultrasounds called biophysical profiles, where they check the fluid and they check the baby's breathing and tone and certain signs that they give the baby, like an internal APGAR. Sometimes the low fluid is a false diagnosis. Mom just wasn't drinking enough. So I tell them, before you go for the test, drink about 2 liters.
Hydrate.
At least every day, it's a good idea to drink about 2 liters of fluid in pregnancy. But so make sure you have a good food that wakes up the baby, that normally wakes up the baby. The baby moves to sort of carbohydrates, so they don't have a false test because baby was sleeping. That's why baby was moving. Baby So that being said, like if it used to be that at 42 weeks we would start the monitoring. Now it became at 41 weeks we start the monitoring. Now they're just inducing everyone at 41 weeks. And then what's happening is failed inductions, because a lot of women are just not ready to go into labor. Yeah. And that's not a way that the body can naturally, respond to instinctual undisturbed birthing and all the hormones, the balance of all the hormones. So then failed induction, cesarean. So that's just one of the reasons that are raising the cesarean rate. So because of that, the doctors that I work with, they are they will back my practice if I do the monitoring starting at 41 and a half weeks. Okay. And I am like telling them a whole bunch of things naturally that they can do to gently encourage things. And but we do the monitoring. And I also do honor, like if the testing is good and she's 42 plus weeks, I tell her, these are the standards of the hospital. These are the standards of the obstetricians that I work with. And most of them are okay with that, but a few will say, I want to go into labor when I'm ready. Yeah. Like I want to wait till 43 weeks. Right. So, sometimes it's a little bit of a tough balance there, because if some of the obstetricians, depending on where they live and the hospitals, are not going to give her, they'll say, well, then we're not backing this,
Right. Oh yeah. That
So
can get tricky.
that can get tricky. So if it's a first time mom, for example, I might be a bit more, strict with that, just because there are transfer rate. Like if a woman is given birth before, 99% of them will have another home birth or another vaginal birth. So if I know a woman, she's had 3 babies with me and they're all go, 42 and a half weeks, it's not gonna raise red flags with me if the testing is good.
Right.
A first time mom, and actually first time moms tend to go later. It's just kind of normal. So it really, it depends on the specific obstetrician that I'm working with in the hospital where she's near where she's living. And there are a few that will work with a woman that just wants labor to, she wants what's called expectant management. She just wants to allow labor to occur on its own. But I've had a lot of success just getting women into labor, just sort of with the natural, sort of more gentler way. Just because of the community, the modern medical community that we still have to be a part of, are just can really make things difficult.
Yes. And then that's a good transition, because I'd love to talk about when we actually do need the medical community. How can you, I know you have this course, which we'll talk about in a bit. I want you to explain it a bit. But how do you help women to love their birth if they're working with you, they want a home birth, and then they actually do have to make that transfer? That can be really devastating to a woman. They can feel like they failed, and like so many different things can come up for them. I know that's probably a lengthy answer that you could have, but like any tips or anything you want to say about that?
Well, so first of all, I've had it's a very different scenario if you have a doctor and you just you're admitted for an induction because let's say the bag of water has broken and the fluid's been released, and they have a policy like no labor in 12 hours, you have to be induced, right? So she goes in and she's not being induced, and she has a cesarean. She's not going into labor, she's being induced, not responding to the medication, and they give her a cesarean. A lot of times they feel like they weren't even given a chance, right? So I'm not talking about love your birth. I'm talking about just like if a woman is doing everything she can, and this is where I talk to women. This is a journey that is like a journey that will help you in life, because most of life is not in our control. So what I'm going to help you do is we're going to plan, and we're going to set up everything in place so that you can rock your birth, that you can have the birth of your dreams and or come close to it, and do whatever it takes within your power. Once in labor, it's I'm going to do the best I can, and you're going to do the best I can. Rarely and uncommonly, there are, well, more commonly things don't happen as planned. Like they want they want a water birth. They want a water birth. And then when they're pushing, like I had a woman who lived in a loft, and she had this beautiful water birth. The whole setting was just beautiful around her tub, and it was facing the window. Beautiful scene, and she had candles and lights and art and all things, and she wasn't feeling the pushing. She wasn't able to get into a good position in the tub, and I thought it would be good for her to kind of like a standing squat. So I have the squatting rope, and there was no door. It was a loft. I like throw it over a door and close the door, and then she kind of grabs on the rope and squats. And the only door was the door to her boiler room and laundry room. And she was right there, and like, rocking it, and the baby was coming, and I'm like, do you sure you don't, because she wanted her water birth, you want to go in the water? And she's like, no. and she had the baby in the boiler room, but we always joke she had a water view. So I'm just saying, like, you know, when you go into labor, you know, you maybe you want your kids at birth, but when you're in labor, you know, the kid gets up and starts snorkeling in the bath and jumping and splashing in the birth tub, and her labor stops. So, you know, you need to be flexible.
Yes.
That when you're in labor, things are not going to go as planned. Expect the unexpected. Embrace the unexpected. I have a spiritual perspective, because whatever happens is meant to happen, because it did happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're arguing with reality, you lose. 100% of the time, as Byron Katie says. But so most of the time, the unexpected are still within the home birth or natural birth, you know, versus, let's say, a woman is in labor and she's vomiting the whole time. She has no appetite. She's not interested in eating and drinking. And she gets dehydrated and her uterus is not working, like like running a marathon. The muscles don't, you know, you don't function well when you're dehydrated and not getting, you know, food. So an IV was enabled her to have her home birth. So, you know, and she's grateful for that. And I can do that at home, you know, so it just happens. Like, when she was in labor, she could not eat and drink. And so we need to embrace medical intervention when it's necessary. And it's not like I'm giving everybody an IV.
Right.
But if you need it, we're going to talk about it. I said to her, you know, you've been stuck at 6 centimeters or whatever she was stuck. You're not progressing. You're exhausted. You've been up 4 nights in a row. You're throwing up. I mean, I could do this, you know, or we could, you know, try the natural remedies. And I think an IV will help you, you know. And she's like, give me the IV. Right. So there are times when medical intervention is necessary. And I try to, you know, I help women to kind of cultivate that spiritual perspective, even if they're not spiritual, just because we cannot control, you know, we're going to do our best, but then we're human and there's so much that happens that's beyond our control. Women who, you know, so like I said, there's 7% of women we need to go to the hospital. My cesarean rate is 5%. And I try to, modern medicine are not devils. They're not evil. Like, it's not like, it's just like, we don't need modern medicine to breathe. Right? We don't need modern medicine for our heart to beat if we're healthy. We don't need modern medicine to have our period monthly. But if we have a complication, it can be life-saving. Like, if somebody has a heart attack, if somebody has severe asthma and they can't breathe, I mean, they need certain medical intervention. So I cultivate, and it's part of the transfer consent forms. I have the transfer form, and I have, you know, informed consent that says that they sign, that we agree on that when there are they agree to transfer to a physician or a hospital should it become medically necessary. And not just to have them agree to it, but to embrace it. Like, we have done everything in our power. This is what's going on. And now we need it. And now we need to be grateful for it. So that is like an attitude I try to cultivate through the whole pregnancy. That being said, a woman who has planned a home birth and has done whatever she can do, and no matter what, we've tried everything from A to Z, baby is just, you know, she's not dilating past a certain point, she's getting exhausted, or baby is just not coming down the pelvis. And we've been doing all sorts of asymmetrical upward positioning. It's just not working, and baby's starting to get in distress. She wants to go to hospital. Like, we want to get this, you know, we want to, and after the birth, you know, most of them are grateful for all the care, because they were treated with respect and dignity and safety, not recklessly. And we made a mutual decision that it was time that we needed to go. Occasionally, of course, a woman that had that plan and ended up with a cesarean, she's going to need much more support. She's going to need much more, physical and emotional healing. And so I try, I help facilitate that. It's not, but just kind of like anything in life, you accidents happen, you hit a curveball, and it could be you planned this and this thing happened. I mean, I don't, from minor things to major catastrophes and tragedy. So the only way I can that I help myself and help women is to have the God of their own understanding, some spiritual perspective in how we, because angry at that, it's just, or going into a funk and depression. We need to find ways to heal from that. And to me, what the perspective of embracing that whatever happens is meant to happen is actually the journey that my soul, or that my baby's soul, needed to go through. And it's a very high level to work towards, but to actually be grateful for even what we call the bad things that happen.
Yeah, I love that. I got the chills when you were talking about that. I think that's such a potent piece of advice, and it's come up already in another interview too. Just like the surrender to the unknown, right?
The reason I developed that is because I've had my own tragedies in my life, and I had a choice. I was either going to sink into a ball of depression like my mother, or like, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? How can I rise from this? There are people that have been through adversity. Those are my inspirations. The people that have been through adversity have risen, and they're stronger. They're more compassionate. They've healed. They're not in this state of trauma, yes, it's appropriate. We love our grief. We love, it's appropriate to be sad and disappointed, and but when it starts getting into long-term kind of depression and trauma, and so then I started to learn these certain sort of trauma release techniques. Because pain is stored in our body, and it can limit our joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a time for healing. There's a time for feeling all these emotions and not to repress.
Right.
So, I work with women on that,
Yeah, beautiful. Well, before I ask you the last question, I'd love if you want to share a bit about your offerings, particularly online for anyone watching online. I know you have the course, so if you just want to give us a brief summary about that, and how people can find you, and I'll post all your links for everyone too. So
the course was birthed. Well, okay, so I started Instagram. It was like a hobby. My daughter said to me, "You should be on Instagram." I'm like, "What's Instagram?" Well, she started me on Facebook a few years back, and I was like the same thing, like one more techie thing. I'm not an online person,
Yeah.
But it's like, she said, my daughter said to me, "You love inspiring, you love teaching, you love empowering women, you love people send you all these awesome pictures." So Instagram is just, you post a picture and you like to give a caption and just, it's a great way to spread information and inspiration and help women. Okay. And well, it turned into like almost 60,000 followers, and it was like crazy in just a few years. It was just amazing. Like, so, and people on Instagram were like thirsty, like women, like they're in Iowa, they're in Australia, they're in the Philippines, people all over Europe, Canada. Like my baby's breech and I have high blood pressure. What do you recommend?
Right. Yeah.
What can I do from, I had a traumatic first birth. How can I have a better one next time? And I can't answer that on Instagram. That's a conversation that to really best help you.
Yeah.
Right. Because in my practice, initial visits are 2.5 hours. I mean, the physical exam part and the labs are the last little bit, right? Most of
Yeah.
it is, I need to hear what's going on, like mind, body, heart, soul, and how I can help you holistically, right? So that sort of birthed this online consulting, and you know, women. So that was consulting for women in the pregnancy. And, you know, some women like come to me, like they have a doctor, they have no access to a midwife, but they want a midwifery perspective in their pregnancy. So that births sort of the packages of, you know, I can, you know, it could either be 10 online consultations and email access through the pregnancy postpartum, or we could do trimester one, you know, each trimester will touch base. You know, they want the sort of holistic, natural perspective that I have, but they're seeing their doctor. And then I started getting all these questions from birth professionals, I want to become a midwife. There's so many different routes. It's overwhelming. What should I do?
Yeah.
You had such a successful practice. I don't even know anything about business. How did you do it? How did you build social, you know, how can you help me? I'm a doula, and I don't even know how to start getting clients, right? So that sort of birthed the business as, you know, consulting for professionals, right? But my baby became the course, because a lot of people were telling me, like, can you be my midwife? How could I, you know, do you travel? I'm like,
Right.
oh, if you were in Hawaii, you know. So what I did was I took, so I was interviewed by a doula several years back, and she just said, we fell in love. We were just like clicked, and we kept in touch. And that she films, she's really a marketing person, but you know, she knows how to film, and her sister's an editor. She says, you gotta put this in a course, you know, so basically what my course is, it's like taking women through my practice. So without the hands-on midwifery care, and so it's like how do you have the most optimal healthy pregnancy from mind, body, heart, emotion, you know, not just what to eat and drink,
right,
what to avoid and exercise, but really how to cultivate joy, cultivate sensuality, addressing the relationship, addressing the whole life of that woman, you know, in the pregnancy. Of course, we talk about the supplements I recommend, and you know, ways to reduce stress and cultivate joy, and you know, just have the healthiest pregnancy, to help people to trust their body. Like I have a lot of women that come to me with a lot of fear. So you know how and they're so like not in tune with their biological clock of their body. And when they're in pregnancy, they start to deepen, and you know, I help women really like reconnect with themselves, reconnect with the power that they have and their strength, and connect with their body wisdom, you know, and then of course I go into like every single possible test and procedure that's done to pregnant women, and they're throughout, from the beginning, all the tests through, you know, postpartum, and we talk about the pros, you know, like the pros and cons of each of those tests, and how they can make an informed decision on each of them. How to choose a provider in a birth setting unique to you. You know, like the different questions to ask your provider. And then as a whole section on preparing the mindset, because I think going into labor, you know, the women going into labor, you know, being afraid, thinking hospital's the only way, that that they can't handle it, their body can't handle it. So we really need to, like, if they want to rock and love their birth experience, we need to totally reframe their perspective. And I use like athletes, for example, like a marathon runner, or they ask like Michael Jordan or very successful athletes, like, what made you hit that shot when there was 7 seconds on the clock and you were 7 points behind, and how did you make three 2 3-pointers and a layup and win the game at the buzzer beater, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I knew I was going to make the shots. I knew we were going to win. So like, you know, how dancers, I'm a dancer, how dancers can rock a performance on Broadway or at the New York, you know, Julia, at the any sort of theater, and they're hurting, like, you know, but they're not feeling the pain, because they are like, I am going to rock this performance. I'm going to rock this game for my team. I've worked my whole life for this Olympic, you know, whatever, you know, whatever they're doing, the gymnastics. And so it's an attitude of, they might, you know, those who climb mountains and those who are, you know, real mountains. I'm not talking about, you know, with the rock. With the ropes, or those who are running the 26-mile New York City Marathon, for example. I think it's 26 miles, but it's hard. Like, no, it's darn hard. But and you know, maybe this is hurting and maybe that's hurting, and they feel tired and they want to give up. But what's pushing them? They want to do it. They're gonna rock it. And nothing's wrong, you know. It's sort of just kind of reframing and also seeing labor for what it is, connecting, you know, because it's your body doing what it needs to do to get your baby out, right? So the top of the uterus is contracting, the bottom is opening, and the uterus is squeezing down, so the baby can be pressed on the cervix so it can open, and the baby can come down through the birth canal. But you know, these are just coming in waves of sensations that and then you have this break in between, and then it's again. So even, you know, in the beginning, it's not frequent, it doesn't last long, right? 15, 30 seconds, maybe coming every 15, 20 minutes. But in the end, when it is long, it's really just 60 to 90 seconds. You can do anything for 60 to 90 seconds. And it lasts, you know, and then you get this awesome break in between. So, so and then connecting with the billions of women that have birthed before you and that are around the world and that are birthing now. So that I have a lot of different ways of helping women, you know, also with visualization. Like, how can we get excited and love this experience? Like, I've had women tell me they're in ecstasy with their birth, even though, you know, it's painful. They're in ecstasy with their pain. So there's just many different ways. Like, I had a woman, for example, so visualization, I have a lot of women, like, what visual speaks to you? Is it like, in terms of like transformation, is, you know, like the closed tight rosebud that gradually opens and blossoms to a flower. Or, you know, or waves, you know, you can just visualize yourself sort of, you know, riding a wave. You know, when you ride the wave, you get to shore. When you fight it, it will knock you down. So the woman was like roller coasters. So every time she was on, you know, the wave would rise. She was like, woo, I'm going up, whoa, you know, and then she'd go down. And like, she made her labor like this roller coaster ride. Like there's such potential for the human experience to have fun and pleasure in it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've had babies, I've had women laugh their babies out, sing their babies out, dance. We do a lot of dancing. So that's part of the course. I do anatomy, physiology. So like, what can they expect to feel physically and emotionally, what's happening in their body from the beginning of labor till, you know, after, for postpartum. I go into a whole section of, okay, you're in it, and no one says it's going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy. Usually it's as hard as heck. It's the most challenging, healthy experience you've ever had. Just like an athlete who's healthy, but, you know, doing something that's pushing the edge, like really challenging. You know, people that climb Mount Everest. It's not easy, right? But when they do it, they're like, what? There's this sense of empowerment. So, but I go through like early labor, you know, all the different stages of labor. What can, you know, from all the different modalities, birthing from within, you know, Lamaze, but like all the different things that I have seen to work the best with the thousands of women that I've helped. So those are what I focus on. How can, you know, to help a mom really cope with her labor, you know, and so I go into that and how dads can help. The whole section about, you know, dads, like helping them understand what's going on so that, you know, so that they can be calm and exude calm and how they can best respond to the woman. And then we make a birth preference, like going over every single possible intervention from, like I said before, a hospital gown to wearing your own clothes, eating and drinking, who you're going to have at the birth, all the way up to, do you want, you know, intermittent monitoring of the baby, continuous monitoring. We talk about the pros and cons. You want you want labor to go naturally? Do you want to be induced? So that they can be clear on you know, do you want delayed? Do you want them to cut the cord right away, or do you want them to allow the cord to be just pulse until the placenta comes, like just not interfering with a brilliant process that knows exactly what it's doing more than any human being. And you know, so, but I discuss pros and the cons, and then I have these four, you know, this downloads that they can fill out and that they can discuss with their provider, their partner, their birth team. And, you know, so it really helps them. Sometimes just in doing that, it might help them question, you know, wow, what setting am I really, is the setting provider that I have chosen congruent with what I like, with what I want?
Yeah.
And then I go over like the forgotten fourth trimester. You know, it's like the wedding. It's all about, you know, we're the wedding. Yeah. But the real life is after, right? You know?
Yeah, sure.
So the whole thing about, you know, how can we set you up like women have supported women since the beginning of time, so that you are surrounded by a circle of support, you know, that you don't have to cook, clean, childcare for the other children, and do errands, and that is taken care of. So we take out a calendar and we really make sure. And then I go over, you know, what is postpartum, what can they expect, what can they do?
Right.
And then, you know, breastfeeding is a whole section about how to rock the breastfeeding and care for the baby. And then I do, you know, a whole thing about different meditations, breath work, visualization, and calming relaxation techniques that I have found to work best with the women that I help, you know. So it's a video course that also has downloads, you know.
Beautiful.
So, like I've put like all my years.
It sounds like it.
I'm excited about it, you know, and I've gotten great feedback.
Yeah, I've been following you on Instagram, so I've seen that. It looks incredible.
There's obstetricians that tell their moms to take my course.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. Oh, I love to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, of course, midwives and doulas, and sometimes you know, doulas take it for their certification. And midwives and doulas, you know, sometimes they just tell me they want to take it so that they can help the moms in their practice better.
Yeah, and soak up the wisdom of someone with all your years of experience. It's so valuable. Oh, thank you. Well, I only have one last question for you, and it's a short one.
Go ahead.
I'm asking everybody. So if you could sum up one piece of advice for either moms to be or new moms, and something that you wish you would have heard yourself before you had your first baby, like if you could go back in time and whisper just a sentence or two in your ear, what would that be?
That you can do it. That your body is built just like your heart breathes, just like you breathe, just like your body knows how to eat and drink and digest food, your body knows how to birth. And, you know, whatever you can do to connect with that wisdom or just to think about we would not have survived as a species. Like billions of women around the planet and hundreds of thousands are giving birth at the same time you're giving birth. And if you could just feel that and like, you know, there was an accident of history that happened in the 1900s that took that power away when birth was moved to the hospital and the field of obstetrics was created. But before that, women were doing it, and you know, for the vast majority, it's a process that works. And to trust that you have the strength to, you know, it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, but that you can do it. And then when you do it, you are going to feel awesome. Like I did that. And strength and that empowerment will carry you through life. You'll never.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. It was such an honor. I
Oh,
was
good.
so excited when you said yes. I was like, oh,
Ah!
yeah, I'm getting like emotional.
It's
It
an
just
emotional
means so,
topic. Touches
yeah,
us all.
yeah, exactly. And I'm 34, so I just have so much respect for women like you who have been in this field. That's not always easy for all those years. So I appreciate the work in the world that you do, and thank you for sharing your time with us today.
That's great. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.